What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick, and welcome to another episode of Short Circuit Sports, the channel that brings you weekly, lightning-fast coverage of the sports world from a fan's perspective. I cover anything and everything from breaking news to scores and predictions with analysis to bring you guys anything that you might have missed in the sports world. That being said, we got a lot going on in this episode. For those of you that are subscribed and are wondering why I did not put out an episode last week, it was Thanksgiving. I was with family, was not able to make an episode even if I tried. But as you can see, I'm here now to give you guys a great episode that I hope that you enjoy. So without further introduction, we got some Thursday night football recap between the Seattle Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys in what was actually a really good Thursday night football game. For those of you that are diehard football fans, you know what I'm talking about when I say that Thursday night football games are typically bad. They are notoriously bad because teams are playing on a short schedule and the energy is low and teams are just not playing at their best. That was not the case last night. This was a very, very good game between these two teams that actually made history. So you do not want to miss that. We also got the NFL schedule as things stand in Week 13. So depending on where your favorite team is, whether you are fighting for a division title, whether you are fighting for a wild card spot, whether you are fighting for the number one overall pick because you are tanking so hard and you are absolutely sucking, then that is where I think that your team lands. You do not want to miss my predictions for the rest of the NFL season. We also got a quick MLB update about the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes to sign the two-way superstar pitcher and hitter. A couple teams dropped out of the running to sign him. A couple of teams are still in it. And the deal to possibly get him is going to probably be over $500 million. So you do not want to miss those details at all. And last but not least, we also got my top 5 games to watch and look out for the NFL Week 13 slate. So you do not want to miss any of that. If you are currently not subscribed, please subscribe, like this episode, turn on your notifications, the whole thing. It would really help me out, would really help out the channel, and you would get more of these episodes in your feed, and I would really appreciate the watch and subscribe. So, without further introduction, stay plugged in, stay charged up, and let's get into it. On Thursday Night Football, we got the Dallas Cowboys beating the Seattle Seahawks in Dallas, 41-35. This game had absolutely no shortage of offense. When I mentioned before that this game made history, this game was only the 5th one in NFL history to not record a single punt by either team. Let me repeat that. This is only the 5th time in NFL history that this happened, that there was not a single punt recorded by either side. So in this game, you either had a touchdown, a field goal, a score of any kind, or a turnover. So a lot of action, and as you can tell by the numbers here, absolutely zero shortage of offense. Starting with the Seahawks, Geno Smith playing like he did last year when he led the league in passing, throwing for over 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. Did have an interception, but I digress. He had an absolutely great game on offense. Receiver DK Metcalf went for 6 receptions for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. Going over to the Cowboys, quarterback Dak Prescott had a 70% completion percentage, throwing for 1 yard short of 300 and 3 touchdowns, while receiver CeeDee Lamb had 12 receptions, 116 yards, and a score of his own. If you had any offensive player in this game on your fantasy football teams, if you partake in fantasy football, you know as well as I do, you had a great day while watching this game. And if you unfortunately left them on your bench, or you had an opponent that had any of these players, I am sorry. But overall, this was an incredible game to watch. It came down to the wire. Unfortunately for the Seahawks, they could not pull out the win, and they could not answer a Dak Prescott touchdown late, and the Cowboys would end up sealing the victory. Now, a couple of notes for either team. The Seahawks, this was actually one of their better games played this entire season, even though it ended up in a loss, and even though they are now losers of 3 straight. I will say that this is one of the better games that they have played all year. Geno Smith actually played incredibly well. It looks like they found a future running back in Zach Charbonnet, who ran for 60 yards and a touchdown of his own. Look, the Seahawks offense has not been good all year long. They are currently sitting at 6-6. They're second in the NFC West, and they are currently doing everything they can to just fight for a wild card spot. And if this offense can stay as consistent as they played last night, I really would not be surprised to see the Seahawks sneak into the playoffs, at least with a wild card spot, if not attempt to fight for that NFC West title. Now, that being said, on the side of the Cowboys, good news and bad news. The good news is, regardless of whether or not you are a Cowboys fan, you are a hater, or you absolutely support this team, it does not matter. Dak Prescott is officially in the MVP running. He threw for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has been playing incredibly, incredibly well. They have now won 4 straight, and they have a chance at possibly, fighting for a division title next week when they play the Philadelphia Eagles at home. So, Dak Prescott has been playing incredibly well. This offense is actually starting to look really dangerous, and if the Cowboys can put it all together on offense and stay consistent, would not be surprised to see them be really hard to knock out of the playoffs. That being said, I will say here that their defense is really starting to create more questions than answer. They just gave up 35 points to the Seahawks. Like I mentioned before, the Seahawks have been incredibly inconsistent all year long. They just gave up 35 points to them, and the Seahawks have not won a game against a team with a winning record up until last night. The Seahawks were the first team they beat all year that had a winning record when they played them. Every game the Cowboys have won this year, every team has had a losing record. And the teams that they ended up losing to, it wasn't good. I mean, who can forget when they got absolutely demolished by the San Francisco 49ers? And then a couple weeks later, they went to Philadelphia and they ended up losing. So they have a chance to really erase their questions if they can go back home to Dallas and beat the Eagles coming to Dallas. But I'm really thinking that they're kind of overhyped, a little bit overrated. And if there's one aspect of this team that might actually be legit, I'm starting to think it might be the Cowboys' offense, not the defense. So it really remains to be seen if the Cowboys can really keep up this level of play from both sides. But if they give up 35 points to a team like the Seahawks, who haven't been really consistent all year long, if you're a Cowboys fan, this might be a sign of things to come, and it might not be a good thing. Moving on, this is where every team currently sits in the NFL. Starting with the AFC, I've got the Miami Dolphins winning this division, winning the AFC East division. I don't think that the Buffalo Bills are going to catch them. The Bills have been incredibly average all year long. I just don't believe that Josh Allen has improved at all, and the Super Bowl aspirations that the Bills had at the beginning of the season are definitely evaporating before our very eyes. I don't think the Bills the Bills are in danger of losing out on a wild card spot at this point, when everybody at the beginning of the year thought that they were going to win the division. So, remains to be seen with the Bills. As for the Jets and Patriots, I think that they're both going to remain cellar dwellers for the remainder of the year. I think the Jets would be absolutely foolish to activate Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you haven't seen the video, go check it out. Aaron Rodgers back in practice after having a torn Achilles at the beginning of the year. While it makes for good videos and good media, I think that the Jets would be really, really dumb to bring him back, especially when a lot of medical doctors and analysts truly believe that they would be rushing him back way too soon. It could spell disaster for the Jets if they bring him back. Moving on to the AFC North, I've got the Baltimore Ravens winning this division, although I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers could make it a very close race, especially with Mike Tomlin steering this team. I think that the Steelers have what it takes to at least be a wild card team for the remainder of this season. Kenny Pickett is actually playing very well on offense, especially since they've gotten rid of offensive coordinator Matt Canada. They have played very well. As for the Browns, they're about to start their fourth quarterback all year, and it's none other than former Ravens Super Bowl winning quarterback Joe Flacco. So, great headline there. Will it actually translate to wins for the Browns? Remains to be seen. But the way that this division is shaping up, I think that the order that this is in is most likely the order that the season finishes with. I will not be surprised, though, if the Browns somehow, some way sneak a wild card spot. But I will not absolutely definitively say that that will be the case. And as for the Bengals, no Joe Burrow means lost season for Cincinnati, unfortunately. The second Joe went down, that was the end of Cincinnati's season right there. Moving on to the AFC South, I believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars will most likely win this division. I think that the Colts will eventually fall off. The Houston Texans have actually been a really good story as of recent, especially with front-running Offensive Rookie of the Year quarterback C.J. Stroud playing incredibly well. I think the Texans could make noise in the division, at least fight for the division lead, but most likely attempting to sneak into the playoffs with a wild card. And then the Tennessee Titans, I mean, they've got some rookie struggles with quarterback Will Levis. I think the Titans will be headed for a rebuild at some point, whether it's at the end of this season or next, and I don't see them fighting really hard for the rest of this season. Moving on to the AFC West, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs winning this division. You could almost make the argument that this division is all but won. That being said, they've got a second-place team in the Denver Broncos that has won their last 5 games played. Russell Wilson is playing incredibly well in this offense, which is what everybody thought would happen last season, and then it absolutely turned into a major dysfunction for the Denver Broncos. So, if the Denver Broncos can continue their winning consistency, I think that they have at least a shot at a wild card. I don't believe that they have enough juice to overtake the Chiefs, but any team that can push the Chiefs for the division is in a pretty good spot for the playoffs. And then looking at the Raiders and the Chargers at the bottom of the division, at least for the Raiders, they have some hope if they hold on to interim head coach Antonio Pierce. They have played with a lot more energy under Pierce since he took over for Josh McDaniels, who got fired. I think that the Raiders, if they hold on to Pierce for at least another year, they see what he can do next year, the Raiders might be a team to be reckoned with if they hold on to Pierce. And then as for the Chargers, I mean, they're arguably the most dysfunctional team in the NFL. I don't know why they haven't fired Brandon Staley yet. They just recently set 2 records, and it's the most Charger record you could probably think of. They just set an NFL record for most points scored in a 3-year span, while also setting a record for giving up the most points in a 3-year span. So they're not doing themselves any favors by holding on to Staley. You can already make the argument that this Charger season is already lost. They have to relatively win out the rest of their season, plus get help from everyone else to even attempt to make the playoffs. And with the way the Chargers have been playing, I think that is borderline impossible. And the Chargers could very well finish with a very disappointing last place finish in the AFC West. Moving on to the NFC East, I think this one speaks for itself. I think that the order that these teams are in is what it stays as. I think the Eagles finish in first place. Although there might be a team in the NFC, not the NFC East, but the NFC in general, that could potentially fight for that top NFC spot. Stay tuned for more information on that. I don't think that the Cowboys quite catch the Eagles, but I do believe that the Cowboys are the most likely team out of this entire division to have that number 1 wildcard spot, and then the Giants and Commanders will probably remain cellar dwellers for the remainder of this season. Moving on to the NFC North, you've got the Detroit Lions sitting there at 8-3. I think with how everybody else in this division has played, I've got the Detroit Lions winning the North, which is something that Lions fans have all been praying for years to hear. And I think this is the year for them to officially make the playoffs. I think the Vikings most likely finish second. However, if they do not figure out their offensive struggles, I could see the Green Bay Packers sliding up into that second spot and attempting to fight for a wild card spot. And then you've got the Chicago Bears, who are absolutely in tank city right now. Whether they fight for that number 1 overall pick to select USC quarterback Caleb Williams, or they use that pick to actually build around quarterback Justin Fields, which they have not managed to do in the couple of years that they have had him. So it really remains to be seen how Chicago deals with the dysfunction of their football team. Moving on to the NFC South, this is probably the worst division in all of football. You've got 2 teams that are fighting for the top spot with losing records. I personally believe that the New Orleans Saints overtake the Falcons for that number 1 spot. They just have so much experience on both sides of the ball. You've got Derek Carr, when healthy, is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And they have the talent with Alvin Kamara at running back, Chris Olave at receiver. It would be incredibly disappointing to see a team that actually has a decent amount of talent, like the Saints, end up with a losing record and not even have a shot at the NFC South title. That being said, the Atlanta Falcons have seen a spark in their offense with rookie running back Bijan Robinson starting to show out. So it would not surprise me to see the Falcons contend for that top spot. I just think that the New Orleans Saints have just too much experience on both sides of the ball for them to really falter and not compete. You've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Carolina Panthers. I think the order for that stays the same. Carolina is just incredibly dysfunctional right now. They've got a rookie quarterback that is incredibly struggling in Bryce Young. They are 1-10. They just fired their head coach. And unfortunately, they don't even have a first-round pick because they gave it to Chicago in order to get Bryce Young last year. So we'll see what happens with Carolina and how they grow from this. But the NFC South is not looking great this year. And then last but not least, you got the NFC West. You've got the San Francisco 49ers at that top spot. I've got the Niners winning this division. You have 2 teams that could potentially fight for a wild card spot in the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. Both of those teams have not been very, very consistent this year, but they both have the pieces on offense to really make it interesting. And then you've got the Arizona Cardinals. They just got quarterback Kyler Murray back from a major injury, and they are currently sitting at 2-10. I think that they are also in Tank City. I don't really believe that Arizona has a shot at all to really compete. That being said, if you're a team in the NFC, I really don't think you want to overestimate just how hungry the Cardinals offense could very well be. And if they wanted to, they could play spoiler to a bunch of teams in this league right now. Moving on to the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, according to analyst Jeff Passan, the Dodgers, Cubs, Blue Jays, and Angels are among the teams still bidding on Shohei Ohtani, while the Mets, Rangers, and Red Sox have turned their attention to other players. As I mentioned before, the team that signed Shohei Ohtani is looking at upwards of a $500 million contract. I've got the Giants still in the mix here, mostly because of what they tried to do last year, in which they tried to lure away Aaron Judge from the New York Yankees, and they almost succeeded. So I think the Giants are hungry. I think that the Blue Jays and the Cubs are wild cards if Shohei Ohtani enjoys his visit to those teams. Personally speaking, I think that it's the Dodgers to lose. I think with the Angels' dysfunction, they haven't even sniffed the playoffs when Shohei has been there. I don't think Shohei wants to leave California. The Giants could be in the running, but with the way that the Dodgers roster is constructed, it is no secret that the Dodgers want Shohei and they want him bad. And with the roster that they have, they're fighting for the playoffs every year. Are they making it past the first round? Remains to be seen. But they have the roster to go all the way if they can put all of the pieces together. And Shohei would make that roster, I don't want to say unbeatable because obviously that's not the case, but that would make adding a Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers roster would be something to see. So personally, I got the Dodgers signing Shohei Ohtani. He is incredibly loyal, but I think that his time with the Angels is officially done. And then last but not least, we got the Week 13 version of Nick's Picks, where I give you my top 5 games to watch this weekend, along with the predictions that I believe will happen for their individual games. You've got, for number 5, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs going into Green Bay and beating the Green Bay Packers 24-17. Now, Jordan Love has been playing very, very well for the Packers. They have won 2 straight, and they did just win a very tightly contested Thanksgiving game against the Detroit Lions. That being said, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, and I really don't think that there is a major competition of quarterbacks there. I've got the Chiefs beating the Packers. The score is a lot closer than this game actually will be, in my opinion. Moving on, you've got the Detroit Lions going into New Orleans and beating the New Orleans Saints 28-17. Jared Goff is playing at a very, very high level for the Detroit Lions. He is in that MVP conversation. They had a setback last week against the Packers, which, I mean, isn't exactly thrilling to see if you're the Lions. I mean, but that being said, they have won 3 of their last 4. And going up against a very inconsistent Saints team, I just think that the Lions have too much talent on offense to really falter in this game, and I think they bounce back. Moving on, you've got the Los Angeles Rams beating the Cleveland Browns in Los Angeles 21-17. Now, it is a great story for the Browns. I mean, they're on their fourth quarterback, and that fourth quarterback is none other than former Ravens Super Bowl winning quarterback Joe Flacco, as I mentioned before. And, I mean, the Browns have won their last 3 of their last 4 games played, which that's not a horrible record. I mean, they're sitting at 7-4, but I mean, does Joe Flacco have enough time with this offense? I mean, he just signed with Cleveland, I think a week and a half ago. I just don't think that he has had enough time to really build a relationship with this offense. And with the way the Rams have been playing, I mean, they've won their last 2 games, and it's at home in Los Angeles. I just think that the Rams have the advantage here, and I think that it'll be a relatively close game all the way through, kind of low scoring because both teams have very good defenses. I just have the Rams pulling this one out. For my number 4 game, I've got the Houston Texans beating the red-hot Denver Broncos in Houston, 24-21. I mean, you can't really say enough about what the Denver Broncos have been doing recently. I mean, they've won 5 straight. They've completely turned their season around. And Russell Wilson has been playing incredibly well in those 5 games. On the flip side of that, the Houston Texans rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, talk about a rookie of the year. He could very well be an MVP this year. Both teams have had a really good resurgence on offense. The Texans have won 3 of their last 4. I think that the game being in Houston, they're coming off of a tough loss last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have the Houston Texans just barely beating the Denver Broncos, and I think it'll come down to really whoever has the ball last. And then, as if there was any doubt, my top game of the week this week is the San Francisco 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. And as I mentioned before, there is one team in this league that I think could knock off the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. Now, both teams have been talking a lot of smack recently, especially because this is a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game where the Eagles ended up beating the San Francisco 49ers en route to a Super Bowl appearance. That being said, Brock Purdy got hurt in that game. 49ers believe that if Purdy was healthy, it would have been their team that would have gone on to the Super Bowl. So we really get to see just if what the 49ers believe to be true is that if Brock Purdy is healthy for this game, which he is, along with all of their weapons that they have with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and that stellar defense, which I personally believe is the best in the league, against the all-consistent Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, that brotherly shove that the Eagles have patented, along with the Eagles' I want to say average defense. It's in Philadelphia. We'll see how it really plays out. But if this game comes down to really whoever has the ball last, I've got the San Francisco 49ers with that talented roster that they have. I think that they get their revenge game, and I think they win it. So that is all the time that we have got for this episode. If you like this episode, leave me a like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, the whole thing. Comment down below if you agreed with me, disagreed, whatever. I will get back to you. And if there's something that I didn't talk about that you wanted to hear, please let me know down in the comments, and I'll be sure to cover that in future episodes. And yeah, I hope that you guys have a great rest of your holiday season. Without any more interruption to your afternoon or day or whenever you're listening to this video, stay plugged in, stay charged up, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Short Circuit Sports. Have a good one.